Viewers, today I have with me environmentalist Vimlendu Jha. He's also the founder of Swecha NGO, which is a Delhi-based NGO that works towards environmental and social issues. Thank you so much, Mr. Jha, for speaking with Asianet News.
Yes, welcome.
Mr. Jha, I want to start talking about the challenges that the citizens of Gurugram are facing. We are hearing debates everywhere where people are talking about the menace which Gurugram is going through, waterlogging everywhere, traffic snarls, waste being dumped in open spaces. All of this is plaguing the city. Why don't we start by you talking a little bit about what are the root causes of the problem?
So, indeed, Gurugram is going through a major crisis, a civic crisis, a climate crisis, a crisis of governance in that sense. But also at the same time, it's very important for me to state that it gets disproportionate attention because it's actually closer to Delhi. That's point number one. And point number two is, of course, it's one of the richest cities that we actually have in the country, and therefore, but irrespective, when we look at Gurugram, it's also a classic case of how development or urbanization should not have taken place. As you know, a city, if you look at the first master plan that came in 1962, it clearly said about Gurugram that it should not be inhabited. Primarily, the human settlement of this nature or this magnitude should not be allowed, and primarily because of lack of underground water in that sense. Despite that, we've seen, indeed, of course, historically, when you look at urbanization or the growth of Gurugram, it's also the Maruti car factory that came here closer to this place, and then after the land acquisition and a lot of private entities that came and actually set up the entire city. And then later, now we have hundreds of Fortune 500 countries headquartered in Gurugram. The main problem is that we have not looked at the carrying capacity or the urbanization capacity of a city called Gurugram or Gurugram now. Of course, one thing that we've done very, very beautifully, change the name, but changing the name does not change the destiny of a city. Very, very systematically. So if you look at the water flow, the topography of Gurugram is actually from south to north. So to Aravalli, because it's also the extension of Aravalli mountain range, it actually drains from the south to the north, and north is where there's a river which is now known as Najafgarh but so the entire thing, the Sahibi River in that sense. So that's where the water was supposed to go. But between this entire draining system or the channel, the normal topography that Gurugram or this entire region has been blocked by various constructions, a lot of them indeed by the private developers, but also by the government. There are two very, very big roads that actually run here in this path of water in that sense. One is the MG Road and the other is NH8. The national highway. And of course, now there's a private developer road called Golf Course Road. A lot of conversation of late has been about Golf Course Road because it's a road where both sides of the road or both sides of this highway-looking fancy road, there are apartments and condos that are worth 100 crore, 200 crore, 300 crore. So one was that we damaged. The other is the deforestation that took place primarily to really have these building complexes and these builders that came about. And then there were a lot of these water bodies, channels, canals, almost 60 of them that actually fed into this entire topography, or in that sense of the drainage that we had. And most of them have actually been blocked. So east to west, there were the water actually drained into this topography, and that topography further drained into Sahibi River. And Sahibi River is one of the main tributaries, as I said, of Yamuna, and then this water actually went into Yamuna. So when you actually block the water resource, the natural channel, which you might not be able to see it in summer months, but that's the natural, that's for that monsoon. The nature had designed its own drainage system that's been completely abandoned. The other is that when you look at the drainage system, the municipal drainage system, there's hardly any that exists. And one that exists still, earlier Gurugram was known for its fields, and that's where the water recharge is to happen. So every time it rained a little extra, of course, these canals and these channels and these drains actually took it to Yamuna, first Sahibi and then Yamuna, but there was also porous water recharge that happened. Now, with so much of concretization that has taken place, which has anyway blocked the natural flow, or the drainage flow of water, of rainwater more so, but also has stopped water from entering the ground, and therefore it actually stands still. And that's the reason why you actually see Venice-looking situation in times of monsoon.
Mr. Jha, one of the interesting things that I'm seeing when there are so many voices around this issue, I'm seeing that a lot of people are pointing fingers at the BJP. Now, you yourself said that the topography is as such that when you have the Aravali Ridge at the south of Gurugram, from where the water actually goes down to the Nazafgarh Jheel or the Nala, earlier we had this natural drainage system where we had catchment areas around the city, and then the water would naturally go to the Jheel. But now we have a lot of urbanization, rapid urbanization. But my question to you is that this urbanization, I'm not trying to politicize the issue. Definitely BJP needs to be held accountable in this because it's been in power for over a decade. But my question to you is that all of this rapid urbanization that we're talking about, it happened between 1980s to 2010s. Then is it fair that we are only, pointing fingers at the BJP and not holding Congress accountable? Because they have been in the power in the region.
You're absolutely right, Hina. So one is, you're absolutely right. But at the same time, and therefore there are two things that is very, very important. One is historical urbanization that has taken place. Because as I said, the first master plan said Gurugram should not urbanize, and not urbanize at this scale in that sense. And that urbanization has been across political parties, irrespective of which political party came to power. That urbanization has continued. That started, as I said, as the Congress was in power, is when Manesar, is when the Maruti Suzuki plant was actually set up. And since after that is when we've seen subsequent more developments, so-called developments, and urbanization that has taken place. So for sure, urbanization or auction of land or the loot of natural resource and mindless development / redevelopment of Gurugram that has taken place is party politics agnostic. But at the same time, if you look at governance is not only historical. Governance is also immediate. Government is the present day governance. As in, nobody would remember what Delhi looked like 2 years ago when it flooded and when Arvind Kejriwal was the chief minister. If he was to be blamed in 2023 and 2024, or perhaps more in 2023, because there was an unprecedented rain in 2023 as well. Similarly, Rekha Gupta, who is the current day CM, has to be blamed. So governance is a continuous process. It's not something that you do 20 years ago and fall asleep. You have to really evolve yourself based on the urban load, the population load, the waste load. Like, for example, if the current municipality is not taking care of the garbage or the municipal waste, it is the current day municipal commissioner or the political dispensation that has to be held accountable, and not Pandit Nehru in that sense, or Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi or anyone, or Manmohan Singh in that sense. So governance is an everyday affair. It's a continuous affair. It's not something that is locked in history, but indeed urbanization, and this is not just applicable to Gurugram in that sense. The same thing as we look at today, if Himachal is flooded, Himachal actually has a Congress government, and the same kind of disaster is taking place in Uttarakhand, which is actually BJP government, and then Punjab, houses have completely gone inundated, and that's Aam Aadmi Party government. So therefore, it's a party politics agnostic, and it's a climate change. It's an era where we're looking at intensity and frequency of climate change has increased, and people in power, irrespective of their political ideology and the color of their flag, they don't care, and they haven't cared, or they haven't even taken into account of the new reality or the new normal for climate change. And that's the reason why you see these events, which is very easy to pass as climate event, but indeed they're climate event, but their effect, the reason why they're happening, and the reason why they're happening so aggressively and so violently and again is because of two things: the man-made interventions and the lack of planning and governance in conceptualizing and executing these large-scale projects or townships, including Gurugram. The way we are looking at it, do we actually need so many buildings? Do we really need so many fancy roads? Someone, I was doing a show yesterday on another TV channel, and a bureaucrat said that a lot of times citizens get to see a flyover and they celebrate and clap for a flyover. A drainage system is not visible, and therefore nobody asks for it. I don't think that's true, and that could partially be true. That the enigma of the high rise, the visible, the twinkling, the shining, but the backbone or the foundation of a city is its quality of water, its quality of drainage system, its waste disposal system. All of this is what composite together is what a city should be known for.
Right. And I think very rightly said, I think a decade is a long time to be able to tackle all of these issues. Moving forward, Mr. Jha, I want to point out to a decision which was taken by Haryana government, where on 18th of August, they defined the definition of what constitutes a forest. And there in one of the points, it mentions that it needs to be 40% of canopy density. Now, given the fact that Aravali vegetation only receives very less rainfall, I mean around 300 millimeter, despite the fact that we have Gurugram, where only even after a little bit of rain, we have all these waterlogging issues and all of that. But Aravali vegetation, it receives very less rainfall if you go into the facts. And then you cannot expect such a density to be able to declare a patch of land as a forest. Then don't you think that there is an issue here? Because otherwise you will go and say, okay, this does not constitute a forest, and then so we are able to, take it out.
Absolutely, Hina. So there's a lot of opposition to that so-called definition of Punjab and Haryana government, and right now this is also where we're looking at. Based on that one classification or new so-called definition, there will be a lot of land grab, because forest, when you declare something a forest, that also restrains both government and private leasing of land or buying of land or construction in the forest area. And when you suddenly, and that's where, I always say that there are two forms of corruption. One indeed is transactional corruption that we always see, which is where you pay money to break a law. And the other form of corruption is collusional form of corruption, when you change the law itself. When you change the definition and you start saying that, oh, well, this is not even a tree, or this is not even a forest, or perhaps this is not even a human being in that sense, lightly speaking. So indeed, what we've seen is we've seen the laws, the conservation laws, the forest laws. Here we're seeing the definition itself is changing, and that's the root cause of a lot of disasters that we are actually seeing in our urban areas. We've seen the same thing in Char Dham Road project, how without taking an environmental impact assessment, without doing any environmental impact assessment that is required for a road more than 100 kilometers. This was a 900 kilometer road, but was split into 53 pieces so that they don't need to take an environmental clearance in that sense. So we've seen these shortcuts. A lot of that is done in the name of greater common good. We actually say, oh, well, this is for public, this road that is being built, or perhaps this forest that is being cleared. We don't realize that all of the work that we did, all the damage that we've done in the last 30, 40 years is showing up as a result in climate events, the frequency and intensity of it already. And whatever, if we continue to do this, it's only in the next 20, 30 years that half of Himalayas will be completely gone. Looking at Gurugram might have a great skyline, but if the is gone, if our air quality is done with, if everyone right now, the report says that you lose 8 years of your life, or 8.5 years of your life if you live in Delhi NCR. If the situation continues, I'm sure in 10 years there'll be a report that will say that you are going to lose 30 years of your life. And then there'll be a report, if we still continue like this, will be a report that will say that you will die if you live in this city. So if we are imagining dead cities at the cost of being prosperous and pompous and fancy, then God save us.
Right. And Mr. Jha, do you think that we need to take a legal route in this? Because MCD seems to be not doing anything. Every monsoon season, we have the same situation in Gurugram. So do you think, I would even ask you, should Supreme Court also, go ahead and take a suo motu cognizance? Because not to forget that in the stray dog issue, there was no death in Delhi. Still, major verdict was passed. And then later on, it was a state, that's a different matter. But don't you think that in this particular case, when people are dying of electrocution, Don't you think that the Supreme Court needs to take a suo motu cognizance of this?
See, ideally, it's not our space to comment on what should Supreme Court think is a suo motu appropriate case. Indeed, one can comment that yes, if stray dogs were such a menace, why can't life-taking highways and devastation work that you've actually done, the government is doing? But at the same time, we need to remember that governance is not the responsibility of the courts of our country. Governance is, at the end of the day, the responsibility of the legislature and the executive in that sense. But yes, why not? And why should it only take care and take suo motu? Why should Supreme Court only take suo motu cognizance of a rich person or a rich city? It should take cognizance of also why did Himachal get flooded? Why hundreds of houses in Manali got submerged in River Byas, or what happened in Dharali, where till date we don't even know how many people died, other than the 5 that were reported on day 1. Since after that, there's not even a report of injury after such a big disaster that took place. So indeed, it's high time that the courts come in, but that's also slightly dangerous to really allow courts of our country to enter into the mainstream realm of governance is very, very risky in the long run.
Still want to talk about the accountability. Where does it lie? I mean, I was reading one of the comments by an expert who said that there are so many agencies on ground that sometimes they dodge accountability and they evade their responsibility and just blame the other one, that this does not come in our purview. This is not something that we take care of. So do you think, because I also earlier spoke about this issue in terms of defense sector, that why can't we have a central agency so that people can go to that central agency and talk to them, tell them their issues, and we have one person or one agency to be held accountable?
Absolutely. So MCG here, which is Municipal Council of Gurugram, which is similar to what MCD is in Delhi, they are the ones that are supposed to be responsible for governance. Indeed, in cities like this, when you have population which goes into 10 million and 20 million, both, I'm talking about Delhi and Gurugram, and also the fact that Gurugram, Faridabad, Noida, Delhi, all of that also is the composite NCR in that sense, and therefore there's greater attention, both media and policy attention that is there. We've been saying a lot of times that we need to have a regional plan and not the political boundary plan, because if at the end of the day, if Delhi's air has to be improved, it has to be done together. It cannot just be Delhi's air, it also has to be Gurgaon's air and Noida's air. Similarly, when you look at a watershed approach, at the end of the day, we are talking about the entire drainage of Aravali, and Aravali that starts in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, and then the last point, the tip of it is actually Yamuna, which is in North Delhi, the visible Aravali range that we talk about, and therefore it needs to have a shared understanding of conservation or understanding of Aravali and its drainage system, because we all might have created these lines and divided people based on linguistics, but linguistic cannot just be the only reason to divide states. So therefore we do need a regional plan. We need a regional plan for climate mitigation, for heat wave mitigation, and when I say climate, it includes heat, it includes drought, it includes cloudburst and flash floods, but also looking at the modern day environmental challenge of waste segregation or waste disposal, both at the local household level or at the municipal level, and similarly the drainage system. So I think at this moment, indeed, the first thing should be, and we never hear it, the MCG commissioner should be sacked. The entire team that supposedly was actually desilting the drains or was responsible for taking care of the drainage system or of the waste system, because all around Gurugram, I live in Gurugram, and in just 2 kilometer radius from where I live, the entire area is a mess, and I live in somewhat a privileged neighborhood, and still there are heaps of garbage. It gets cleaned in the morning and in the evening, and by morning you'll see construction garbage and factory waste and municipal waste dumped on the road, and there's no accountability. No one is held responsible for this. So in this, I think the heads need to roll. Heads need to roll in terms of the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats. Our taxpayers' money is going into something. It's not as if you're asking for some charitable action by the state. State is they are elected. The person who actually sits at the helm, the senior IS officer, perhaps, who would be the MCG commissioner, here and his entire team members, they should be held responsible for this flood-like situation that we actually see in Gurugram, and children getting electrocuted, people losing their car, their livelihood, and all of this, it's an ecological issue and also an economic issue. Loss. We are talking about one of the prosperous towns. This is where, as I earlier said, Fortune 500 companies are headquartered. The India headquarters are in Gurugram, and we have such a sad, sinking state of affairs.
Just final closing question, Mr. Jha. What do we do when these officials who actually allot lands to people, illegal construction happen, when they are hand in glove with the land mafia? I mean, we have seen so many stories coming out of Gurugram where we see that farmers are being asked to sell their lands to the government in the garb of government acquisition, and then builders get this particular land and then they build buildings which are worth crores of rupees. So what do we do? Because yes, MCG commissioner needs to be held accountable. He needs to be sacked immediately because this is the state of affairs of Gurugram. But do you think that police also needs to come in place in the picture to arrest all these people who are, running these land mafias?
Every stakeholder here, as we all know what Gurugram has become. It's a realty mafia. The property mafia runs the entire Gurugram in that sense, where there perhaps some builders would be more powerful and wealthier than the municipality in that sense, and a lot of them have been able to become wealthier because they've changed the rules or there's been connivance with the authorities. And in authority, indeed, there are several authorities. There's a clearance for construction authority, there's a completion certificate authority, there's an environmental clearance authority, and indeed there's police, which is also a part of this entire network in that sense. So this nexus has to break, but that can only happen when we have a consolidated public outcry for this. There's also a courts of our country that needs to take cognizance that how are these buildings allowed. And I'm of a very, very strong opinion that a lot of times we can't say everything as fait accompli. That's too late. Buildings have come up. Now what to do? No. India is not something. India doesn't have an expiry date of 2050 or 2070. Our great grandchildren and our generations are going to live in this country for 400, 500 or 4,000 years. And for that intergenerational wealth or intergenerational resource needs to be maintained, and we have to be held accountable. We have to be accountable ourselves, and also hold accountable people who are taking away the water, the land, the forest, not just from us in our own lifetime, but from our coming generations who are going to lose because of this entire mafia-giri that is going on.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jha. And I think we as people, because journalists will keep on asking these questions, and people like you who are working on ground will continue to give their insights. But the issue is that it only happens in the month of monsoon. And soon, when the winter will arrive, we'll start talking about pollution. So I hope that we are able to break from this cycle and be able to actually bring about a reform. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Jha, for speaking with Asian News.
Thank you.